I know something about each one of you at the deepest level. I know this about you, that your greatest need, the one that we don't talk about a lot, is the one to belong. And some of us, we know this one. It was ever since we were in middle school. Every year growing up, but it hits middle school so hard that you're hoping it's this year that you belong. This year. You know, I can be who I am. And maybe this year I'll feel comfortable in class around these people. And for some of us, I'm pulling off the Band-Aid right now. And you're saying, man, yeah, I remember those years. I've tried to grow through them, but thank you, Matt, for bringing that up. You know, sometimes we have one of three options. When in our search, our quest to belong, we either say, you know, I'm just going to give up. I'm never going to belong anywhere. Or we say, you know what, I'll just put on a mask and pretend that I belong. Or we look for another group. And we say, no, maybe this group, maybe that group. But this universal need to belong, this idea to be loved and to love other people, it's at the core of who we are. And oftentimes we just don't think too much about it, even though it's always there. You know, psychologists oftentimes get things right. Yeah, this is the way God made us. You know, Maslow made this hierarchy of needs. And right in the middle is the one to be loved and to belong. And until we get that, we're never going to feel comfortable enough to find out who we really are. To feel that we are worthwhile, just as we are. And the need to belong doesn't stop when you're a little kid in school. Let me go in the Wayback Machine here to maybe an hour ago. When you're driving on the road here, did you think that you belonged here? For some of us, like, I don't feel like I belong here. You know, this celebration is not so large that you can't meet everybody, that you don't know everybody. You do. You recognize people, but oftentimes did you feel like you belonged? That this is a place that I can be who I am. They'll accept me as I am, with all of my flaws, with all of the garbage that I have in my life, with all the baggage, that they'll accept me as I am. Not to say that you need to stay that way, but they'll say, I understand where you are. You still belong here. You know, the next 4 weeks, we're going to go into a series, All That I Ever Needed. And that's the series that we're taking a break from the story and God's overarching theme through the Bible of caring for His people and bringing them home. But we're going to need to talk about some of our deeper needs. And this isn't going to be a psych class, even though in some ways they're very closely related. They're different. But even here, we need to understand that you belong. At every level. See, and even more, the Bible talks about us belonging. Now, I got to read this to you because it hits at the heart of us. Let me read Psalm 100 to you so that you understand that you belong. And when you read this one, you have to go to two different sides as you read this because it's like two people talking. So on the one side it says, shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before Him with joyful songs. And then the other guy starts talking. Know that the Lord is God. It is He who made us, and we are His. We are His people, the sheep of His pasture. And the other person chimes in and says, all right, enter His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him and praise His name. For the Lord is good. For the Lord is good, and His love endures forever. His faithfulness continues to all generations. And hopefully you heard. Did you hear the part where you belong? You know, we read this one. You've heard it since you're a kid. But most of the time we hear this and we don't hear that we belong. That you belong. God says, it is He who made us. We are His. We're His people, the sheep of His pasture. We belong to Him. Do you belong to God? Do you know that you belong to Him? And you notice I didn't say that do you feel like you belong to God. I didn't say that. We want to start with the facts. The fact is, God's telling His people you belong. You were created by God to belong. I'll give you this part of it. To belong means this: to be included, to be accepted, to have a secure identity with. God created you to be with Him. He says, you belong to me. You're my child. Your place with me is secure. The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, looks at you and says, you belong to me in my kingdom. Your future is here. Now, there's many people that will look at this and just say, well, you know, God has to accept me. God has to say, you know, you belong to me. Because, you know, even if I reject Him, I'm running down the road away from Him. He's got to say, I love you, you belong to me. He has to. That's what God has to do. No, He doesn't. He doesn't have to. Where is it written in the Bible that God has to accept you, regardless of whatever you do? Here, don't confuse me on here a second. I'm not talking about that His grace isn't over all of us. No, that's not it. I'm just saying that there are some people that will never belong to God. They've chosen way before us that, no, I'm never ever going to do that. I'm running the other direction. There are some people that since they were born, God said, that's not mine. And that hurts us sometimes to hear that. But Jesus didn't mince words with that. He says there's some people that don't belong to God. You're saying, man, Matt, where are you bringing this up? Let me give you this. Jesus was talking and said, on Judgment Day, many of you will say, Lord, Lord, we prophesied in your name. We cast out demons in your name. We perform many miracles in your name. But I will reply, I never knew you. Depart from me. There's a lot of people that don't belong to God. And that hurts us. And we start thinking, do I belong to God? Do I? How do I understand this? Do you want to belong to God? Well, let me give you a little clue here. When you were born, another thing I know about each one of us, that you were made body and soul. Your body was complete. You were born. And physically you were complete, but there was this part of your soul that was incomplete. There was a part of that soul that there was no way that it would ever become whole by itself. And no matter what you did, no matter what you tried to fit in there, well, I'll put in people. Oh, I like this person. I'll put that person in there. See if they fill up my soul. And every time you're disappointed because they disappoint you. There's not a person out here that won't disappoint you when you say, oh, I'm going to put them in my soul. Or maybe you put success in your soul. I'll keep driving. I'm going to make things in this world. I'll make people see me as the best person. And you say, oh, that'll fill up my soul. And then you're disappointed because other people don't see you that way. No matter what you try to fit in there, it will always be incomplete. And nothing works. And you know why? Because our God said, we are His. that we are His people. We are the sheep of His pasture. In 1 Peter chapter 2, he says, you are a chosen people. You were chosen by God. You're a royal priesthood. You're a holy nation, a people belonging to God. Until you put our God in your soul, until you say, I understand that I belong to Him, you will always be incomplete. That the deepest part of your being, you will never feel like you belong because you are incomplete. Our God says, you are my people. You belong to me. And unless you trust Jesus to take away those sins, you will always be incomplete. You will never feel like you totally belong. And I don't know if we ever remember that, especially in the tough times. I said this the other week to my wife, and hopefully she grabbed it the right way, that I told her that she was the second best decision I ever made. And hopefully every man that is married here has been able to say that their wife is the second best decision that they've made. I remember the freshman year of college. That's when the best decision I ever made in life happened. I had friends, his name was Zan, and this other guy named Dan. It kind of goes together that way. But they talked to me about real life. You know, I thought I knew things because I went to a church that they had the catechism, and I barely passed that class, well, many classes, but I barely understood, but I could recite back to them what was in the catechism, and that was all that really mattered, I thought. But they talked about belonging. They talked about this part of your soul that is incomplete without God saying, you are part of my kingdom. You are mine. And it was there that it was, I never understood it until that time. The old phrase is, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. But that's when it happened. I knew the catechism, but I didn't understand it. I didn't understand that what was my only comfort in life and in death? That I am not my own. I am not my own, but I belong, body and soul, in life and in death, to my faithful Savior, Jesus Christ. Have you said that? That I know that I belong to Him, and that makes all the difference. My soul is complete because I know that He is the one that needs to be in there. That He needs to clean out the garbage and the sin that has taken hold in there. And unless I grab a hold of this idea that I belong to Him, I will always be incomplete. See, my hope is that we leave here, that we understand that we need to belong. And our God has already said, you're my child. You belong with me. And when you have that, everything changes. Everything changes. I'll give you a couple ideas. One of them is your personal self-worth. You see yourself differently. That's how you see yourself differently. I was counseling this teenage girl when I was working at the hospital. And her whole life was a train wreck. You know, she had daddy issues a mile wide. And it was impacting every area of her life. And it was just a matter of sitting down, because oftentimes you just sit down and it's a matter of talking. Let's just talk. We'll just be real. And I don't know how we got on it, but we nailed on the idea of, you have choices, right? You have choices. You don't have to do the things you're doing. You see where they're going, right? You see the dead-end street that you're running down. You don't have to do these things. And for her, it was like, what? I don't have to do these things? It was mind-blowing things because she didn't believe that she had any worth. Oh, she wanted that so bad. She wanted to even belong, to people to accept her just as a person deep down, and didn't have that. And she was searching and running after it. And how would her life have been different if she knew she belonged to God? And that changed everything. How would her life have been different? How would your life be different if you knew that you were priceless to our Almighty God? That you didn't have to do those things. You don't have to, because you're worthwhile just as you are. How would things change? Let me give you this. The more secure you are with belonging to God, the more your choices will change. When you finally grab a hold of this idea that you belong to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, when you belong to Him, that you are worthwhile, your choices will change. And the things that you do, it's not, oh, how can I do this? It's out of fear. It's more out of, I belong to my God. I don't need to chase after all these things that will never, ever get me what I want anyways. They'll change. There's countless studies. There's countless studies that a person's perceived self-worth, how they see themselves, impacts their decisions. You don't have to run very far. This is one of those no-brainers that you look at psychologists and say, well, you're finally catching this? You finally understand this? We've known this for years. The way you see yourself impacts how you act. Oh, how different your life is when you know that you belong to God. That Jesus has changed you inside, has cleaned up your soul, and you are priceless before God, and your future is secure with Him. Your life changes. Man, every person who comes here, that's the story we want to talk with them about. We want you to belong so that you understand you belong. Maybe this is your homework. This is your own personal homework. The verses that we read here, Psalm 100, that you belong to Him. You are a sheep of His pasture. Maybe we need to grab a hold of those things. Maybe we need to go grab a hold of 1 Peter and say, do I belong to my God? And spend some time with yourself this week. Just do your homework. Can you read the question and answer one where it says, what's my only comfort in life? That I belong to my faithful Savior. Can you do that internal homework this week? And become more rock solid in who you are and your worth to God. Can you do that? There you go. You got your homework assignment. Hopefully you guys aren't writing this down. I want you to do this. Spend some time with God and understand your worth to Him and how that changes everything. But it also changes how you focus on other people. Everything changes. See, I don't know who it was. Some brilliant person came up with the idea that people matter to God, so they need to matter to us. I don't know who thought that up, but it's brilliant. We understand it, don't we? We understand how people belong to God. And they need to matter to us. Oftentimes people come to churches, and it's more like at the country club. And they say, excuse me, do you have a specified seat here? Because we have our own seats here, and don't be sitting in my seat. I'm talking with my friends here, and you go over there. They're nicer. They'll go talk with that person. And we look at it like a country club. Maybe a gymnasium where you need a membership to be a part of this place. And it's not a, you belong here. It's, do you belong here? That's the total opposite of celebration. This needs to be a place that doesn't matter who walks through the door. They say, you belong here because you belong. That God says, I want you to understand that you belong. That I'm the one that cleans up your heart and your soul because you're my child. I do this for you. As you know, I was in youth ministry for many years. And every year, for at least 2 months, we spent so much time to help people understand that they belonged in this group. We did group outings. We would do the wild and craziest things just to make sure people understood that they belonged. I think one year I shaved my head before I had to, just because I wanted them to say, I belong here, this guy is crazy, and I can be who I am here because he's insane, and it doesn't matter. How we did some things so people felt like they belonged here. And this was the reason, and I don't know which brilliant person came up with this idea, that people need to feel sociologically comfortable before they become theologically aware. A person walks into this grouping of people and does not feel that they can be who they are. They don't feel like they can be comfortable here amongst these so fine, outstanding people. How are they going to hear what God has to say for them? I'm not saying that that's how it always works. But the general rule is because people feel comfortable, this is a place that I can be who I am. I can relax and hear what this loud person on the steps here is talking about. That I might just be able to hear what God is going to talk to me about. Because you know God has words for our hearts this morning. Saying, you belong to me. You're part of my flock. You're my people. Can I help you grow in your understanding of your self-worth and how you see other people because you belong to me? Your job every week, you have homework every week to make sure that people walk through those doors feel comfortable that they belong here so that God can speak directly into their hearts. Do your homework this week. In this way, I'll give you a couple ideas. This is how you can do it. Because you belong to God. Intentionally greet people. And the introverts here hate that time. You know, I said, sorry, people raising their hand over here. Yeah, we've spent over 2 minutes doing this. And for some of us, it's like, oh, please, it's got to be over soon. And we don't do it just to annoy the introverts. We don't, just I tell you that. Yeah, we don't do it for that reason. We do it so that people feel comfortable here. If we did the greeting time in the church I grew up in, the church in Minnesota I was at, when we did the greeting time, they did it between the second and third song of the morning. And that third song was always louder. Because people said, they won't laugh if I'm just going to be loud and I sing off key. It was always the third song that was so loud because people were comfortable and they were saying, I'll be myself. And they were ready to hear what the pastor was saying because they were comfortable already. Greet people and be genuine so that they might feel genuine and comfortable here. You know, when we have the Wednesday night things during the week, invite people here so that they feel comfortable, so that they might hear Jesus talking with them hopefully on Sundays or during the week. When we do events, it's so that people at church say, I'm with people that care about me. They care if I'm going to have a tough week, or I had a tough week, or I've had a tough life. or I'm going to have tough whatever, and people care. You know, when we sing songs, the songs that we were singing this morning, and somebody was saying, man, that's not my song. Can we do the next one? Like, can I fast forward here, please? It's not that. Even if you need to read the words, it's not about you. Maybe somebody else is worshiping to this song. And we're praying for that person. It's about, because other people matter to you here. Because you belong to God, you can say, I want the best for them, and I will sing this song the best I can, even like a croaking toad, because they matter. And I want them to understand that they belong to God. The common quest for every person is that quest to belong. It's universal. It doesn't stop when you come here. It doesn't stop at whatever age. The common quest for us all is the quest to belong and to understand that we belong to our God. And only He can change us inside. He tells us, know that the Lord is God. It is He who made us, and we are His. We are His people, the sheep of His pasture. You belong to our God.